It's time for Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla. Stay tuned for insights, impact, and inspiration right here on Channel Africa. Available on the Channel Africa app. Tsepiso Makwetla winds it down on Africa World Hour, 9 to 10 p.m.
And it's a very good evening to you. A warm welcome. This is Africa World Hour here on Channel Africa, the African Perspective, the Friday edition of it. Welcome to it. I am Tsepiso Makwetla. 16 minutes of the very latest news from the heart of Africa to all corners of the globe. One story, one planet, countless stories as we bring you the very latest. And today we'll be looking at diplomatic relations between South Africa and Israel as they each fire off the march to various officials, and we'll be looking at the situation in the Sudan as UNICEF calls it a humanitarian crisis. We've been reporting about this, and then we'll also talk about catfishing. Has it happened to you, your image being used illegally, unlawful or not? What damage has it done to you? We'll be speaking to American author and motivational speaker Ty Allen Jackson. All of that coming up on the program. Do stay with us.
1 hour, one continent, one voice. Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
And we look at our top stories this hour. South Africa's Home Affairs Minister Dr. Leon Schreiber saying the Border Management Authority has intercepted over 25,000 people attempting to enter the country illegally during the festive season. Schreiber says more than 22,000 of those intercepted did not have valid travel or identity documents.
The task of building a modern, efficient and secure border management system remains ongoing. Continued investment in personnel, infrastructure and technology will be essential if the BMA is to fully realize its mandate. Critically, the chronic underfunding of the BMA must be addressed, as this organization has conclusively demonstrated the necessary commitment to address long-standing challenges in this area. Additionally, any investment in the BMA ultimately pays for itself by reducing the impact of illicit trade and illegal immigration and enhancing revenue collection.
Staying in South Africa, where police say they've established a dedicated team to track down 18 Chinese fugitives believed to be hiding in the country. This follows the extradition of 63-year-old Chan Fuja, who left the Johannesburg's OR Tambo International Airport today. Chen had been in hiding in South Africa since 2021. National Police spokesperson Athlenda Mate says the man is accused of defrauding the Chinese government of over $7.6 million US.
We have set up a team to look into where those 18 are, where are they hiding in the country. 11 of them are on red notices. It's quite worrying that we have people that see South Africa as a destination or a place where they can hide from their criminal activities. But what is also encouraging is that we are also able to trace them, locate them and arrest them and hand them over. From the 1st of April 2024, we've handed over 20 fugitives from this country to other countries, and we extradited back into the country about 8.
Passenger flights from Addis Ababa to northern Tigray cities have been cancelled due to concerns over potential conflict and reported clashes in the region. Ethiopian Airlines says it notified passengers of the cancellations via text, citing unplanned circumstances. Channel Africa's Tracy Boomgard reports.
Airport staff in Tigray's main city of Mekelle have reportedly been told not to go to work. A 2022 peace deal to end a brutal civil war in Tigray has been unraveling as tensions grow over disputed territory and ahead of June's elections. There are reports of clashes between the federal army and Tigray fighters. Maidugusha, a contested area in western Tigray. There are also reports of new military movements in southern Tigray, raising concerns of renewed conflict.
Burkina Faso's junta has announced a ban on all political parties whose activities have been suspended since the military seized power in 2022. Junta leader Captain Ibrahim Traore has been criticized for suppressing dissent. The move has been seen as the latest action to tighten control. According to Burkina Faso's Interior Minister Emile Zerbo, the ban is part of plans to rebuild the state after what he said were numerous abuses in the country's multi-party system. Zerbo says the old system used to promote division among citizens and weaken the social fabric. Nigeria's late renowned musician Fela Kuti is set to receive a posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grammys almost 3 decades after his death at the age of 58, long crowned by his legion of fans as a king of Afrobeat. Kuti is finally being recognized by the global music industry, Tsepiso reports.
Following the global success of Afrobeat's genre, inspired by Fela's sound, the Grammys introduced the category of Best African Performance in 2024. This year, Nigerian superstar Burna Boy also has a nomination in the Best Global Music Album category. But Fela Kuti will be the first African to receive a Lifetime Achievement Award, albeit posthumously. The award was first presented in 1963 to American singer and actor Bing Crosby. Other musicians who will receive the award this year include Mexican-American guitarist Carlos Santana, Chaka Khan, the American singer known as the Queen of Funk, and Paul Simon. Fela Kuti's family, as well as friends and colleagues, will be attending the Grammys to receive his award.
And Niger's military ruler Abdul Tani has vowed to retaliate after an attack on the country's international airport in Niamey. Speaking on state television, Tiani also accused French President Emmanuel Macron, Benin's Patrice Talon, and Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara of sponsoring the attack without giving any evidence. Gunfire and loud explosions echoed around Niger's international airport in Niamey shortly before midnight on Wednesday in what 2 security sources described as a terrorist attack. And moving on now, we talk about this. The United States President Donald Trump declaring Cuba as a threat to his country's security. Trump has signed an executive order enabling trade tariffs to be imposed on any country that sells or provides oil to the Caribbean island. The Trump administration has been trying to choke off its oil suppliers. That is Cuba. The BBC's Will Grant has more.
The order said that Cuba hosts Russia's largest overseas signals energy facility and also mentioned the island's relations with what it called malign actors adverse to the United States, specifically China, Iran, Hamas and Hezbollah. The other thing the order does is threaten consequences in the form of tariffs against any nation which continues to supply the beleaguered communist-run island with crude oil. Specifically, the intention appears to be to warn off Mexico from replacing Venezuela as the island's principal energy supplier after Nicolas Maduro was forcibly removed from power in Caracas earlier this month.
At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa. At 8 minutes past 9, let's go straight to our top story. The South African Department of International Relations and Corporations has informed the government of the State of Israel of its decision to declare Israel's deputy ambassador to the country, Ariel Seidman, as persona non grata. Pretoria has given Seidman 72 hours to leave the country following a series of what the country calls unacceptable violations of diplomatic norms and practices. In response, we hear that Israel has given South Africa's senior diplomat Sean Baineveld 72 hours to leave that country to look at these reports. We on the line now to spokesperson for the South African Department of International Relations, Crispin Peary. Crispin, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time. Let's just first start with the facts. What exactly has happened and what sparked this action?
Thank you, Tsepi, and good evening to our Channel Africa listeners. We have noted over a period of time the Israeli embassy's conduct on a social media platform called X has been quite disrespectful and downright disparaging, particularly to the head of state. We had conversations with Mr. Seidman about this conduct, and we had hoped that he would realign himself with what is consistently diplomatic practice and diplomatic norms. Unfortunately, we had not seen any change. The second issue that we had raised with the Israeli embassy is the fact that a number of senior officials had entered the country without the knowledge of the Department of International Relations, as is required in diplomatic practice and as per diplomatic norms. When a senior official of a foreign affairs department comes to the country, it is expected that the host nation would be informed. None of this happened, and as a result, we then thought it's appropriate to really send a strong message to Tel Aviv that this conduct will not be accepted, and Mr. Seidman was asked to leave. We have seen subsequently reports and of other Mr. Benefeld, our ambassador to Palestine, not
Yes.
Israel, being asked to leave. And this is something that we find a bit peculiar given the fact that he's the ambassador to Palestine, not Israel. Of course, the complexity of it is because Palestine in its current form is not a contiguous state. Maybe to make that a bit simpler, it's not a state. It's like when South Africa had the homeland system. Botswana, for example, was a country, and so you'd have to enter that country through South Africa. We have a similar situation, of course, in Palestine, since Israel occupies vast amounts of Palestine. It is conceivable that our ambassador would constantly have to enter uh, the West Bank, Ramallah, where our embassy is, through Israel itself, and this could be what they are referring to. But he is not accredited to Israel, and so it should not be possible for them to disaccredit him from another country, and that's something that we will be looking at a bit more closely.
But you've not received any formal communication from the Israeli embassy. You've just seen from reports. Is that what you're saying?
I have been on the phone virtually most of the day. I'm yet to check with the team if there's anything formal yet. It could very well be that something formal has been sent, but initially what we had worked off was reports. Maybe during the course of the day, eventually a diplomatic note may have come.
So let's just go back to what you're saying about the deputy ambassador and his conduct. Typically, when a diplomat comes into the country and the credentials are received and endorsed, is there a formal agreement, or is it just understood, whether it's according to the Vienna Convention or diplomatic relations between two countries? Can you just tell us exactly what governs that?
Yes, quite right. It's the Vienna Convention, which governs diplomatic relations between countries. And then, of course, there are diplomatic norms and practices which are well understood. South Africa is a country, or Pretoria, must I say, is a city that hosts, I think, next to Washington, a very vast amount of countries. So we are well known around what is expected around diplomatic norms and practices. And a number of other countries do adhere to establish diplomatic norms and practices. So, such as when an official from your country comes to your host country, it is expected that the host country is informed. Maybe there may be certain consultations that we would like to have with ex-official. Or generally, if you're going to engage with non-state actors or even state actors below the tier of the national government, that we are required to be informed as well, so that we can assess whether this is consistent with some of the bilateral agreements that we have, and whether this is consistent with how we want to relate to a particular country. All of that is important, and that's why it is expected of a ambassador to inform, or an official of an embassy to inform the host country when senior officials of a particular country are in the country.
Now, I don't want to preempt this or seem to look as if I'm asking you to do the same, but given the fact that Israel and the US have been very tightly bound, especially on relations to do with Israel, does DIRCO expect that there's going to be some sort of pushback from the United States, given the fraught relations that already exist?
Look, what we will view this as, no self-respecting country would tolerate an embassy official insulting a head of state of a host country. That, I think, is something that is clear across the board. We've seen other countries expel ambassadors for far less. In fact, we had the same way. Our ambassador expressed a particular view over President Trump. So we do not expect the US to come to the defense of Israel over their own conduct. Simply put, but for this conduct, we wouldn't be here with the state of Israel. And that's the fact. It's a bilateral issue, and we're going to maintain that it must be looked at as a bilateral issue. It is not a geopolitical matter. Those who want to make this a geopolitical matter would be stretching it far, far, far beyond what it is.
And I know some might say, irrational as it may be, it is not inconceivable given the actions that the United States has taken. I mean, you mentioned, or rather alluded to, what happened to our former ambassador Ibrahim Rasool. What was some people labeled as political rhetoric was set to turn it to legal justification, and by that I mean, flowing to diplomatic relations and ousting our own ambassador.
Well, that's what they were entitled to do in terms of the Article 9 of the Vienna Convention. And so are we. If we believe that an official of an embassy has conducted themselves in a manner that is unsatisfactory, we are entitled to invoke Article 9 of the Vienna Convention as a sovereign state and act in accordance with that, as is any other nation. And it is important to point out that this is not the first time we have declared people persona non grata. There was an incident, I think 2 years ago, where officials from SADC countries had abused their diplomatic privileges and they were declared persona non grata. And here again, we believe that this individual is abusing their diplomatic privileges and we are entitled to declare them so.
And to what extent were the comments made in relation to South Africa's case against Israel at the ICJ? As in, there will be people who will seek to make a connection with regards to Ariel Seidman's behavior and South Africa's reception of those comments. What is your response to that?
We must always maintain diplomacy, even though situations are difficult. That's why we're diplomats. We are trained to keep the dialogue and to keep the relationship cordial, even though there's a fire in the kitchen, or there's, if proverbially speaking, even though things are very, very heated. And when you fail to do so, then it means you've failed in your duty as a diplomat.
And again, just going back to the expulsion of Sean Baineveld, and as you say, there may be no legal standing to do so. The fact that he is, stationed in Ramallah, but Israel has decided to do that. Do you think, again, and this is speculation, that it has to do with how Israel views South Africa's position on Palestine, given the fact that Mr. Baineveld is not accredited to Israel?
It's got to do with how Israel views Palestine. The fact that you think you can remove a sovereign state's ambassador, it speaks a lot about how Israel has gone against the international consensus that Palestine is a sovereign state with East Jerusalem as its capital. Quite clearly, Israel do not believe that, and that's why they believe they can do as they please with individuals who relate with Palestine.
What is the planning over the next 72 hours? Obviously, that's the timeline that you have given to Israel for its official to leave the country. How do you foresee relations, panning out thereafter, or even during this next 72 hours?
Well, we shall see. We remain ready to engage. Ordinarily, any other country would have looked at this and assessed the conduct of their officials, and then with a view to try and send someone who will be a lot more respectful and someone who will be able to pursue diplomatic relations and not nefarious agendas as we had seen in this instance. But it does seem as though the Israeli government are taking a different position. But we will keep monitoring and we remain ready to engage and really apply ourselves to this situation. But most importantly, we are not shutting the door on diplomacy. We do believe that now more than ever we need to continue talking, and talking in a manner that is respectful and a manner that advances each country's sovereignty.
But how would you then lay down the law, so to speak, on what you pointed to unauthorized Israeli officials' visits to the Eastern Cape as a breach of protocol. How will you handle that going forward?
We expect that in future we are informed about it, as is per the diplomatic practice and norms. So that's how it must be done, and failure to do so, we would then have to assess what available instruments are available to us.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Crispin Puri is the Department of International Relations spokesperson here in South Africa, speaking to us about the action that they've taken against Israel's deputy ambassador to the country, Ariel Seidman, and the reasons behind it. 20 minutes past 9.
Ahoy, matey!
Captain here to help, right, boys?
Set sail with us on a digital voyage like no other. Channel Africa has a treasure trove of awesomeness. That is our website and social media pages.
Tell me, why are you here?
We want you to be part of our adventure.
The winds are changing, Captain. And this time...
Imagine a world where curiosity knows no bounds, where entertainment meets enlightenment, and where every click leads to the African perspective. Visit us on our website, www.channelafrica.co.za, or follow us on Instagram or on X at Channel Africa One. Go on, like us on Facebook at Channel Africa One. So, spread the word. Tell a friend that Channel Africa's online variety is what they need on the web. Channel Africa, the African perspective. Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
All right, so let's continue the conversation on the action that South Africa has taken against Israel's deputy ambassador, saying that his conduct was unbecoming and that they'd raised the issue with Israel, but to no avail, and thus they have given him 72 hours to leave the country. As we mentioned, that Israel has taken tit-for-tat action by then saying it is expelling South Africa's ambassador to Ramallah. As you heard Crispin Puri say, how it's not really clear because he is not stationed in Israel. So let's continue the conversation now. We reflect on these developments with former diplomat and conflict resolution expert Dr. Kingsley Makwetla. Dr. Makwetla, very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Having been in the field and being a conflict resolution expert with security context, just share your thoughts on what is happening here.
Good evening, Tsepiso. What is happening, it's unfortunate. For every diplomat, we would like to see every dispute between states being amicably resolved. The expulsion, it's something that we, as diplomats, really don't encourage in states. It's always the last resort that is exercised by states. And it always comes, Tsepiso, as the last resort. It's not something that is taken willy-nilly. And I hope South Africa has considered all the options before reaching this unfortunate conclusion.
And can you just tell us then what exactly, as we've understood that the Geneva Convention regulates the behavior. Can you tell us, I mean, you've been through this, you've understood it, what does it take in terms of discernment as well, your behavior, what is unbecoming, as in what should be seen as a personality factor, or what you really know is breaching protocol?
You know, Tsepiso, there are different in the Vienna Convention, there are different articles that regulates behavior of diplomats. And the article that always stands out for me is Article 41, which really defines how diplomats should interface with the receiving state. That the point of entry for any diplomatic activities through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, unless so agreed otherwise. And those channels have been defined. Similarly, the discussions between organs of the state in the receiving country, it's done through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, unless, again, there's an agreement between the two states, the receiving and the sending state. In this instance, I've seen the statement from DECO that says the Israeli diplomat insulted President Ramaphosa. Now, the insulting of the host president is something that is always taken very seriously. And we must distinguish, Tsepiso, between insulting and the normal critique of the policy of the receiving state. It's done often by different countries, but it's done within the premises of respect for the receiving state. So I'm yet to see that insult. I haven't seen that. What is that the Israeli diplomat, and in this case, Ariel Simon, has said about President Ramaphosa? That's one. The second issue that is being raised in the statement, Tsepiso, which actually I think it's not correct for DECO to rely on that and say Simon failed to liaise with DECO, to inform DECO about the visit of senior Israeli governments to South Africa. They are not required to do that. There's no convention that regulates that. I have, in my own capacity as a senior diplomat, visited different missions around the world that I was responsible for different reasons. Countries would do this, Tsepiso. They would visit, let's speak in this instance, the Israelis would visit to come and evaluate performance of their mission, to audit performance of their mission, to look into systems and processes of their mission here. So they are not required to inform South Africa. Article 10 of the Vienna Convention, which has to do with accredited diplomats. So if, for instance, an Israeli diplomat has reached the end of tour of duty, and there's a new one who's coming, the Israeli diplomatic mission has the responsibility to inform the host country, or the receiving state, in this case, South Africa, to say, so-and-so is leaving and will be replaced by so-and-so who will be arriving on such and such a day. That is required. You can't just see somebody arriving and say, I'm part of the mission without having informed the receiving state. Article 11, Tsepiso, of the Vienna Convention regulates the sizes of the mission, of the diplomatic mission. For instance, the Israeli mission cannot decide to unilaterally expand its own mission without concurrence of the receiving state. So there are different aspects. So when I heard them saying that for the Israeli diplomats who came, or Israeli senior official who came here without informing DECO, it's incorrect. Last week, there was an issue around this thing in the Eastern Cape that Israel wants to build hospitals, want to provide water services. Israel can do that. It's entitled to assist, but it must do that through DECO. It must write to DECO and ask to do this, and DECO must agree. If DECO doesn't agree, they can't do it. And in this case, it seems the Israelis went ahead to liaise with Bwele Kaya, the king of Abatembu, without going through normal procedures of seeking permission from DECO. That's how the issue is. And those are two different matters. So I don't know. I'm yet to see.
Perhaps let me just jump in there and then ask this question, Dr. Makwetla. The power and influence of our traditional leaders. In this case, we've seen that there has been a divergence in policy direction or aspiration. I'm not sure which way to couch it. You can obviously help in that matter. But you're saying from state to state, there obviously needs to be communication through DECO, but if Israel wants to assist, in this case, they are speaking to a traditional leader who, and it then goes to the legal part of the extent of his powers at a local level. Is that not what partly, muddies the waters?
It may muddy the water, it's true, Tsepiso, but Article 41 of the convention, it makes it quite clear. Not only is the responsibility of the receiving state to communicate with the embassy through foreign affairs, Israel has the responsibility to communicate with any entity in the country through foreign affairs. They call it a prima facie authority for communication in the Vienna Convention is the Minister of Foreign Affairs. So Israel knows about this, that's one. Two, Israel should know that the diplomatic function in this country is not a concurrence function. It's the sole responsibility of the national government. And Israel has the responsibility, in terms of the very same Article 41, to respect the laws and regulation of the receiving country. It's the responsibility of any diplomatic mission to understand the laws and regulation of that particular country. Israel has been in this country for many years. It understands this and should function within that. The fact that Wele Kaya can directly approach the Israelis, it doesn't give the Israelis authority to go and do certain things without going through the proper channel.
Okay, so then let's just go back to the issue of Deputy Ambassador Simon supposedly insulting President Cyril Ramaphosa, as you say, and I'm also at this point not sure which exact insult it is, but more importantly, insult versus domestic security and public opinion, because in this case one has to understand that could it be construed as threatening the the safety of the president in those insults? Is that something that then invites a démarche, or what would lead to the seriousness of having to expel a diplomat from a country?
It's precisely the insult. It's a language that is unbecoming of a diplomat. It's hiding behind the diplomatic immunities and privilege to use such language that is demeaning, that is too personal, insulting your country. It has nothing to do, Tsepiso, with criticizing policies of the receiving state and stating the fact that you don't agree or your country does not agree with South African foreign policy on certain aspects. That is allowed. That's part of the continuous negotiation that you see in diplomatic field. But insult, it's hailing insult, demeaning things that you are saying, undermining the sovereignty of the country where you are. And diplomats, they know where and how not to cross the line. So all of us who have been in the field, we understand what is crossing the line. We've had an example, for instance, when our ambassador called President Trump by all sorts of names. He can criticize the policies, but really to go and call somebody by all sorts of names, that's what invites a démarche or even an expulsion. Now, Tsepiso, given the fact that in the best of time, given the fact that the relations between Israel and South Africa has been frosty, but in the best of time, when a diplomat behaves out of what they're supposed to do, the receiving state will then call quietly the sending state and say, your diplomat in this case is misbehaving. We are asking you to recall that diplomat. Actually, in terms of the Vienna Convention, you don't even have the responsibility that's in Article 9 when you declare somebody a persona non grata. You don't even have the responsibility to explain why you are declaring somebody a persona non grata. But I'm saying the best of time you can say X is not doing well, recall the person, and it's a responsibility of the sending state to recall that person. If they don't, then it's escalated to a much more severe and punitive action, which is invoking Article 9 of the Convention.
Dr. Makwetla, I wish we had more time. This is something that certainly needs that more in-depth a look into not only the rules and regulations, but as you say, the various manners in which this can be negotiated. Former diplomat and conflict resolution expert Dr. Kingsley Makwetla on that tiff, so to speak, between South Africa and Israel.
Conversations are happening, and Channel Africa is at the heart of them. We tell the African story with clarity, pride, and purpose, reaching audiences that matter to your brand. Partner with us and connect your business with listeners across borders in multiple languages and markets. For partnership opportunities, sponsorship, or sales, email us at partnership@channelafrica.co.za. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Você é fluente em português? É apaixonado por rádio e quer trabalhar na África do Sul? Você tem documentos que o qualificam para trabalhar na África do Sul? Nesse caso, podemos ter uma oportunidade para você trabalhar no Canal África. Envie seu currículo e demonstração para Canal África at newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Lembre-se, se você não receber alguma resposta nossa em 14 dias, isso significa que você não foi selecionado. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
Africa World Hour. Unpacking global headlines from an African perspective.
And on to news about the United Nations Children's Fund saying a staggering 9.5 million people have been uprooted and displaced across 18 states as deadly clashes continue in the Sudan. The agency says the country has become the world's largest internal displacement crisis, with Sudanese children bearing the brunt of a deepening humanitarian emergency driven by violence, displacement, disease and widespread hunger. For more on this, we on the line to UNICEF Head of Communications in the Sudan, Eva Hines. A very good evening to you, Eva. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us. So, how would you describe the conditions under which millions of Sudanese children are subjected to?
It's a very dire situation and it's a very difficult situation. This is a war that's been going on now for close to 3 years, so a very long time period. And throughout this period, it's close to 10 million people that have fled from their homes. And of these people, 3 out of 5 are children. So more than half are children. And they've been forced to leave their homes, often in the middle of the night, only with their clothes and bags. And then they have to flee. And many of these children then end up in sites for internally displaced. And these are often places that are very crammed. There's very little space. There are a lot of people together. There's limited access to healthcare, to doctors, to nurses, to safe and clean water for drinking or for showering, a limited amount of toilets. Learning is often disrupted when you have to leave your home and continue moving. Food is very limited. So are nutrition services. And many of these children have gone through very traumatic experiences when ending up in these places.
And that's what I wanted to find out. Which are the hotspot areas, and are the children deliberately targeted, or are they just a casualty of the attacks on communities at large?
Well, this is a conflict that rages in different parts of the country. So at the moment, there is fighting in parts of the Darfur, there's fighting in parts of the Kordofans, and when the fighting comes closer, then the children are often in a very precarious situation and they flee together with their families or sometimes on their own. So it is, and the conflict lines keep shifting. So this has happened in numerous parts of the country and continue to do so.
And I asked about whether they're deliberately targeted because we've heard that, in actually both the Sudans, that in some cases the armed forces are actually targeting the vulnerable. And at the risk of asking you to share some really gruesome details, are you able to share with us what some of them have suffered in terms of injuries? We know of mothers who are unable to feed their children, cover their children, take them to healthcare facilities, but have children been deliberately harmed?
Well, children are often victims when there's an ongoing conflict. So also in this conflict, there are children who've been killed, children who've been injured, children who've been sexually violated. So children do pay a very heavy price. And I was recently in Darfur myself, and in Tawila, which is a very big site for the internally displaced, and talking to mothers and talking to some of these children. And there are many there that have fled violence, and they've seen things that no child should see. They've seen, some have seen moms and dads being killed, some have seen siblings being killed, injured through the war. So it is very traumatic, and often these children are victims of the violence.
And can you just share with us the resources that you're in need of at the moment, given the decimation of infrastructure and the fact that these healthcare facilities themselves have come under attack? What are you in need of, particularly what I understand is the status of your winterization kits for the 2026 Humanitarian Action for Children appeal?
Well, there are many things that children need as the needs are growing, and they've grown from last year. That this year alone, we estimate that more than or close to 34 million people will need humanitarian assistance in Sudan, and 17 million are children. So it's a huge amount of children that will need support. And this is different types of support: healthcare, it's safe and clean water, it is nutrition support, it's support so that they can continue learning. It is support so that they can feel protected. In terms of protection, this can mean, for example, safe spaces where services are provided so that they can come together and they can start processing the trauma they've gone through. So there's a need for many different things, and unfortunately funding is dwindling, and so it is a very difficult situation in that way as well.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us. Much appreciated, and sharing with us what is going on with regards to the challenges that UNICEF is facing. Not only UNICEF, but we are talking about the children in the Sudan. Eva Hines is UNICEF Head of Communications in the Sudan.
Let the good times roll. From the 10th of October, make a note. Channel Africa is stepping into a brand new era with the launch of our upgraded website and app. It's easy, fresh, and always on your fingertips. Wherever you are in the world, Africa's voice is just a click away. The future of Channel Africa goes live from the 10th of October. Don't miss the moments. At the forefront, the most pressing issues on Africa World Hour with Tsepiso Makwetla.
Channel Africa.
And it is 18 minutes to 10. In today's digital world, your face has become a form of currency. So a photograph, a name, even a smile can be copied, repurposed and weaponized, often without your knowledge and usually without your consent. So around the world, a booming underground economy is being built on stolen identities, catfishing scams and impersonation. And social media platforms are increasingly where these crimes take place. Our guest tonight knows this firsthand. Ty Allen Jackson is an award-winning children's author, literacy advocate and motivational speaker. He joins us now from New York to talk about this. Ty Allen, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Pleasure to be on your show. Thank you.
Now, I want to hear your story. So those who haven't recognized your face as yet, and I want to just quickly delve into how we got to where we are. I was catfished with your image and through a different name, and I reached out to you and I said, hey, do you know that this is happening? So there are many me's who are being approached with your image. I was just fortunate that for some reason I recognized your face. Tell me about your experience. Have similar accounts come to your attention?
Not a few, but hundreds. I've for many years, unfortunately, I've had hundreds of people come to me. In fact, I would argue maybe anywhere from 3 to 5 a day. For the past several years have reached out to me, letting me know that they have found an account using a different name, but my face, and in some cases, my same name, and just totally trying to replicate, my identity, my persona, my family, my work, and use it as a form to try and scam people.
I saw on TikTok you reported a name under the account of Dr. Raymond Douglas multiple times. Tell us a little bit more about what happened there. What has this individual been doing and how long has that happened?
Well, what's unique about this one particular Raymond Douglas is that after I had called him out, he changed his name and went under a different name. I've countlessly tried to report this to TikTok. TikTok and actually most social media platforms could care less about doing anything about this. But this person this particular scammer that has formerly used the name of Raymond Douglas, I think now using the name Bobby Bland, if I'm not mistaken, has dozens of photos with great success, mind you, with thousands of comments and thousands of likes and thousands of followers, all thinking that this person is legitimate, while all the while using my photos to deceive.
And I want to understand what steps you've taken. I told you, so I came across your image under a different name on Threads. I think that it was Kenneth Davis. I can't remember exactly. Although not much happened, but it was exactly that. You could just get a sense that somebody is trying to slip into your DMs, so to speak, or they've already done that, but you don't know what the purpose is. And I want to understand, what has the damage been for you? What have you said to TikTok and Threads on all of these platforms? Have they tried to be of any help at all?
No. I would say 60% of the accounts that I report are not taken down, are not removed. I've reached out to them directly. I've gotten no response. I've inquired my attorney to reach out to them. No response. The most I can do is to report the accounts and then try to proactively put out videos like the one you saw with that Raymond Douglas person to just inform people that these accounts are out there, that people should be wary, that anyone that slides into their DMs in an effort to quote unquote get to know them, but inevitably ask for money, are more than likely trying to deceive you. And I just have to rely on people to use their common sense to hopefully not be taken advantage of.
So beyond common sense, I mean, there may not be global law, but in most countries, using somebody's image without their consent, especially for deception or any other kind of commercial gain, is illegal. But what do you want people to know and understand? And especially, I say, particularly the impact on you, your brand. I mean, you're a children's book author, you champion children's entrepreneurship. So that must be damaging for somebody like you who does that kind of work.
For sure. It definitely has been a challenge. I think, though, on my primary page, my reputation, my ethics, and my values speak for themselves. So most people, when they run into these type of accounts, they know that it's not me. And even if they were deceived, most of them realize that a person of my integrity would never commit such atrocities. But with that being said, it's hard to deny that there has been some, negative press, not press per se, but negative perception by some people that think that I may do something like this. But for the most part, it hasn't been damaging. But that's why I proactively try to put out videos to warn people and let them know of what's going on, so that one, to inform the public, and two, also to somewhat defend myself.
Has there ever been an incident, a case where somebody comes looking for the real Ty Allen Jackson because they've been scammed? Has somebody ever held you personally liable?
Many times. I've been the person accused of being the scammer. I always just try to do my best to be empathetic and understand. These things can be very emotional, and I know that people feel very distraught and taken advantage of. It's also difficult for people to look inward and say that I made a mistake and I was taken advantage of. I need someone to blame. And so usually the person that they've engaged with will block them, so they can't engage with them. So if they find the face that it came from, they will associate that I must be that person that did it, and will in some cases accuse me. And I will show them videos like the ones that I sent, or just demonstrate to them the amount of times I've tried to report these fake accounts. Sometimes people believe it, sometimes people don't. But ultimately, I can't be responsible for what other people do with their efforts and energy. I can only defend myself best to my ability and hope people are understanding and compassionate.
I think you hinted at the fact that the illegal use of your image has in some way impacted your personal life and professional work. But are you able to share with us how it's done that to your brand, either partnerships maybe that you've lost or people that you engage with?
Well, it hasn't been that severe, to be perfectly honest. There haven't been any brands that wouldn't deal with me because, because of this. Catfishing is not a is not a quiet secret. It's something that's very prominent, and I'm very prominent in that it's been something that has impacted my life. So most people understand. I will say at times when I have been on dating sites, that some people won't believe that it's me, because they've seen those pictures before under different names. So maybe personally, that might be the only time that this has really had any impact. But I can definitely attest that I hope that it doesn't have any impact on the future, which is why I continue to put out videos proactively to let people know that these things exist and that the real person here would never commit such crimes.
Well, let's talk about your work, the body of work. You've done incredible things. Your work has been recognized by the Massachusetts governor, who has even given the former First Lady Michelle Obama, one of your books. So you've been recognized by people like that. You founded Big Head Books. And tell us, what was your thinking? Why did you think, I want to help children fall in love with not only reading, but to become entrepreneurs?
Well, I've been a ferocious reader all of my life. Reading is probably the most primary form of education that I've received. No disrespect to the public school system, which was great to me, but through reading books casually and personally, it's educated and empowered me as good, if not better, than the educational system. Knowing that, I try to create books that kids enjoy, that kids are inspired by, that empowers them as well as educates and entertains them. And it all started because my first book teaches finance and entrepreneurship, because it was first spearheaded by my son, who made $50 selling lemonade and didn't know what to do with the money. So I tried to find a book to teach him what to do with his $50. I couldn't find one, so I wrote one. And that's what got me off on got started on my authorship journey. And that book about entrepreneurship has led me to make that the focal point of my path on promoting literacy, to educate kids to believe that they can start their own businesses. And so far, we've been incredibly successful in doing that, and I couldn't be more proud.
Is this your Danny Dollar book that you're talking about?
Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit more about the kind of stories that you tell. I mean, I've seen some really inspiring stories that you share of a young girl who, creates some healthy, what do you call this? We call them suckers here, lollipops for dental. Yeah, so that was a fascinating one.
Yeah, so one of the ways to inspire kids to believe that they can successfully become entrepreneurs isn't just to read my books or references that they can achieve them, but to see role models who have actually done this. And this particular young lady, Alina, who started a lollipop company at 7 years old, today is a teenager and a multimillionaire, all because she got the courage to start a lollipop company with a lollipop that's actually healthy for your teeth. And there are many kids like Alina, who from Mo Bridges, who started a bow tie company, or Michaela Ulmer, who started a lemonade company, and many other kid entrepreneurs who are today successful millionaire entrepreneurs, despite having started their businesses when they were just in elementary school. And my goal is to, working in conjunction with my book and showcasing these role models, that all kids have the capability of taking their passions to become business owners and entrepreneurs. And it's been really wonderful traveling across the country doing that and inspiring tens of thousands of kids that they can start their own business.
And have you done that with any children or anybody from the African continent?
No, the program that I created is called the Danny Dollar Entrepreneur Fair, and the premise of the fair is very similar to Science Fair, but instead of kids demonstrating how a light bulb would light or how a volcano would erupt. They're demonstrating their ideas for businesses. And there are thousands of children across the United States in 6 different states who are participating in the fair. So we haven't conquered every state in the country here in the U.S., but we would be honored to be able to work with some institutions in Africa to bring the entrepreneur fair there.
Well, I mean, I'm certainly loving the idea of having African children, benefit from that. But the lessons that you've passed on to your children and that you're passing on to other young children who you say have grown with these lessons, what are the fundamentals? What are you saying to them? Because saving is a very interesting thing. It depends obviously on your background, how you're brought up, and also the availability of funds. But I like that agency of actually saying, I can think up something by myself. But not all children are given that environment to be able to have that freedom to think for themselves, to create for themselves,
Yeah, and that's the objective with this program. It's not for every child to become an entrepreneur. That's silly. In fact, many kids don't want to become an entrepreneur. They want to become a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, a police officer, a firefighter. But to develop an entrepreneurial mindset is really the objective, because that mindset that entrepreneurs have of creativity, of perseverance, of confidence, of partnering and communication skills, all the skills that it takes to become an entrepreneur are assets that and character assets that they will keep with them for the rest of their lives, and that will serve them well regardless of whatever direction they go in professionally. So really the objective of the entrepreneur fair isn't to turn every kid into an entrepreneur, but to develop an entrepreneurial mindset.
Now, I want to walk back from where we've started. I mean, you've been on platforms like CNN, PBS, Good Morning America, and on TEDx stages. So what do you think this lesson of, the appropriation, the abuse of your image and your persona, even your brand, you think you can pass on to young children about digital abuse? Because I think it is important. We're seeing countries that are banning children 16 and under from using social media platforms. And I think it's because there's a realization of just how vulnerable we all are, all of us, but most importantly, the most vulnerable online.
Well, I'm not an expert in this field, and I don't pretend to be. If anything, I've been a person who's been abused from it, not necessarily one that, I advocate for it on a form of self-defense as well as in a form of just informing. But I really don't have the background to be able to empower and educate people about this. But what I will say is that, we unfortunately live in a society, a global society that it's easy to hide behind images and faces and technology to be able to take advantage of people. And it's necessary now to use decorum, to use common sense, and to question something that, if it appears sometimes to be too good to be true, that perhaps it is. And there's the technology to do that. You're able to, on a dating site, to take the picture that someone has posted and reverse image it so that you can see the identity of the person who's really there. So it's just a matter of developing common sense, as well as taking certain safeguards and precautions, so that the next time someone approaches you with an opportunity for a deal that can't miss, or an opportunity to find love with a person who, for whatever reason, doesn't want to video chat with them, that they need to find, common sense procedures to be able to protect themselves and make sure that they don't fall prey.
I know you found yourself unwittingly on the front line of a global fight against digital identity abuse, but I think it's important that each one teach one, especially in the personal experiences we all have. And if you've got the reach, if you've got the what you call public standing to do so, to sway people to do the right thing, I think it's important. And I thank you for taking the time to speak to us. Award-winning author, literacy advocate, and children's books writer and entrepreneurship champion for children, Ty Allen Jackson. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And that's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour this Friday. Up next, Shayla and Kumana with the Friday edition of African Diaries. What do we expect, Miriam?
Captains of industry is what we're going to be looking at in the fields of manufacturing, of law, of skin cosmetics. I'm excited about that one. Those are the three sectors that we're delving in today. And essentially, we just get to know the lives of these people. What is it they do? How are they championing their industry? Is it easy? What's their daily routine like? Stuff like that.
Like if you're a skincare CEO, are you somebody who's constantly mixing avocados and honey and papaya and,
Does your skin look the part? I question these things sometimes. Do we know the people behind the skin?
You surely have to walk the brand. Like, I see you spotty and you're telling me you can cure my acne. Hello.
So I'm not telling you. I'm getting my marketing team to tell you.
Yeah, but I'm going to see you one day. One day I'm going to find you and see you and say, why are you not using your own products? Why are they not working for you? Pila.
Ma'am, we find out that and so much more.
Well, we'll be looking forward to that. It's kind of like the whole chocolate idea. Like if you're a chocolatier, do you consume a lot
Not
of
as much,
stuff?
actually.
Exactly.
I've learned that even chefs don't eat their gourmet meals. So
chefs have their own preferences.
Like
they like other people's. I like eating other people's. Like I prefer somebody else's cooking to mine. That's not to say I'm a chef, but
I see what you're putting yourself there.
I'm pretty okay in the kitchen. Come and tell the people. She can testify. I'm pretty okay in the kitchen, but I really do prefer other people's cooking. I don't know. It's just that thing.
Okay. Maybe we should interview you.
About what?
About being you said captain of industry. Here we go.
Not in the cooking field. Maybe in the talking field. Like here, what we've been doing here.
Ma'am, we want something different to change or something like that.
Okay, we can cook up a dumbolo.
Love that.
All right, that's how we come to the end of Africa World Hour. From us, enjoy the rest of your viewing, listening here on Channel Africa, and of course your weekend. Until the next time, goodbye.
Africa World Hour. Africa World Hour.